Coring systems are a total game changer if you're looking to get the most mileage out of your blanks. This is especially true when you're hollowing out some high dollar figure or exotic stock. With a coring setup, you can pull a whole nest of bowls from a single log, whereas without it, you'd just be turning all that prime wood into a massive pile of shavings and ending up with only one big bowl. I've been running the Oneway Easy Core system for 2 years now. After doing my homework on the other rigs out there, I pulled the trigger on this one and haven't looked back once. Using the fingers as a support along with that heavy-duty iron makes the whole setup rock solid and a real workhorse in the shop. When I was checking this system out, mostly what I saw were basic unboxing vids and people turning their first few bowls. I couldn't really find any deep dives or real-world breakdowns of the hidden issues that pop up down the road. So I wanted to put this out there to show the specific quirks and nuances I've run into over the last 2 years of use. My goal is to give anyone interested a crystal clear picture of what to expect in different scenarios and show exactly what this system is capable of. First off, storage is key. I hate it when gear is scattered all over the shop or tucked away in some corner, forcing me to waste time pacing back and forth. I had to really put some thought into how to keep this system handy without it getting in the way. I use it about once a week, so having to hunt down a specific part or assembly is a huge pain. Luckily, I managed to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I came up with a setup that keeps everything within arm's reach while adding an extra 330 pounds of ballast to my lathe, making it even more rock solid. You can find the link below on how to build one for yourself. One thing to watch out for, since everything is right there under the lathe, wet shavings falling down will leave rust spots on the cutters. That's why it's crucial to vacuum everything out and clear away as much debris as possible at the end of the day. If you're turning green wood that's literally dripping, you might have to clear it out a couple of times during the session. Despite that, I still think this is the best setup. Nothing gets in the way, nothing gets lost, and everything is right where you need it. Let's talk about the setup. The manufacturer provides an assembly diagram that's pretty straightforward, but I've got a few pointers to add. My lathe has a 24-inch swing, allowing me to handle some massive blanks. I'm running the full kit with all 4 knife sets, which lets me core out up to 5 bowls from a single block. Once you've sized up your blank, you pick the right knife set and lock everything down. The support finger is the absolute key to keeping the whole rig rigged. You cannot afford to ignore it, whether you're just starting the cut or finishing it up. During the turn, there's so much pressure on the blade that if you forget to advance the finger, the knife can slip right off and dive underneath the support. The blade probably won't snap, but it'll take a massive bend. You'll have a hell of a time trying to straighten it back out and get that original geometry back. The rule of thumb is keep the tip of the finger tucked right under the lead end of the knife, close to the cutter, and keep nudging it deeper into the blank as you progress through the cut. Now, regarding the shape of the blank, usually I run this system with a true round blank. But when I want to preserve that raw, natural log look for a specific project, I'll use it on a blank that hasn't been rounded off. You can cut it either way. That said, working with a round blank is much smoother because you don't have to fight any out of balance issues, which lets you dial up the speed. The sweet spot for a clean cut is usually between 600 and 800 revolutions per minute. It's absolutely critical to support the blank with the tailstock. However, a standard revolving center won't cut it. It'll likely just get in your way. You'll need to pick up an extension for it. I use the Robert Sorby revolving center kit. Its profile is narrower than a standard one, which gives you much needed clearance for the tool. During the cutting process, there's a massive amount of pressure on the chuck. Without that tailstock support, the blank can easily slip out and go airborne. Don't repeat my mistakes, it's a major safety hazard. As you're coring, you'll be swinging the knife handle around. Once that handle starts getting close to being perpendicular to the lathe bed, that's your clear signal that you're approaching the center of the bowl. At this point, you need to back off the RPMs a bit and loosen the pressure on your revolving center. If you don't loosen that pressure, the inner bowl can get pinched, which is never a good thing. Now, let's talk about the setup geometry. The manufacturer provides specific measurements for each knife to help you position the base. I actually have those setup blocks cut to size for every blade, but honestly, I never use them. Every blank is different, and those standard specs almost never fit the reality of what I'm turning. You might find yourself wanting to go off script. Maybe you want to core out a much deeper bowl than the standard curve suggests. In my shop, I've probably used those setup blocks maybe twice. The rest of the time, I just eye it in. It all comes down to the specific chunk of wood that's on the lathe at that moment. To check for perpendicularity, most guys reference off the tool rest, but you can just as easily use the tailstock. Sometimes it's actually more convenient that way, and the result is exactly the same. The main thing is to stay focused and make sure your centering is spot on. It's crucial that this assembly doesn't touch the blank, but you don't want it too far away either. If your blank is longer than usual and you don't adjust, you'll end up having to hog out way too much wood after coring, and your bowl will basically turn into a bucket. On the flip side, if you're short on diameter, you can slide the base back and core out a smaller core than the standard setting suggests. This allows you to save the specific dimensions you need for your main vessel. Let's take this apple blank as an example. The length was spot on, but it was a bit narrow. I was aiming for a deep bucket while keeping that natural edge intact. To make it work, I had to slide the base back and eye it in, so that I'd have at least 1/4 inch, 5 to 7 millimeters of bark left after the cut. Sure, the core I pulled out didn't make for a full-size second bowl, but I got exactly the deep vessel I wanted, plus a bonus platter that definitely has its own value. It's basically a freebie. Sometimes I run into the opposite situation where I'll upsize the knife. I know I'm sacrificing some depth on the main bowl, but it gives me a much deeper core for the second one. This kind of work is high stakes. You really have to take your time here. Drop your RPMs and keep a laser focus on that support finger. One slip and the knife can dive on you in a heartbeat. You've got to stay sharp and stay safe. You've got to keep in mind exactly which part of the cutter is doing the work and how much material it's actually removing. Remember, your curve isn't just the very tip of the cutter, it's the full thickness of the blade body. That means you're not taking a 2mm slice, you're clearing a full 10mm gap. Back when I started, I used to overlook this all the time. I'd end up with wall thicknesses that were much thinner than I'd planned because I hadn't accounted for that heavy curve. A few points on sharpening. It's a given that your cutters must always be razor sharp. I've already done a video on my Tormek sharpening process, but as of right now, I've found my optimal routine. I shape the angles on a standard bench grinder and then finish the flat surfaces on the Tormek. Even though you can rotate the cutter perpendicularly and find a position where the play is almost non-existent, I prefer having a larger contact area for sharpening the flats than a standard grinder can offer. If you have the Tormek MB102 multi-base, you can sharpen on the side of the wheel, which provides a perfectly flat surface with no hollow grind or curvature at all. Call it perfectionism or maybe even an unnecessary expense if you don't already own one, but since I have it, this is my go-to method for flattening the cutters. And finally, as a tip for future processing, make sure to cut a tenon for the inner bowl right away. If you don't do it now, you'll end up wasting a lot more time and effort trying to set it up later.